Welcome to KB on the Go. This week, I'm coming to you from Cisco Live 2024 at the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre, where AI is taking centre stage in driving the future of technology. Here in Melbourne, we're surrounded by the buzz of innovation and industry leaders, all exploring how Cisco's latest technologies are enabling us to work faster, safer, and smarter. Stay tuned for the inside scoop from some of the world's leading experts presenting at Cisco Live 2024 here in Melbourne, as KBI Media brings you all of the highlights. Joining me now in person is Dr. Guy Diedrich, Senior Vice President and Global Innovation Officer at Cisco, and today we're discussing enabling the success of the IT workforce in the AI era. So Guy, thanks for joining and welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Okay, so I've seen some of your presentations over the last few days, and I know that you're presenting earlier today before this interview. Now, when I look at your background and your bio, one of the things that was coming up in my mind is inspiring the younger generation. And one thing I've observed of knowing people who are in the younger generation, I'm a millennial, what I've noticed is they're more focused on becoming TikTokers and YouTubers over an IT career. So do you have any insight on that?
You know, I don't think it's an either or. I think it's an and situation. So we see a lot of TikTokers, a lot of Instagrammers that use that medium to be a gateway into technology, or the other way around, where they become very technologically savvy. Maybe they have a degree, maybe they've gone through the Networking Academy program here at Cisco, and to augment their IT experience, they become Instagrammers, they become TikTokers. But to me, it's an and. We don't see one really taking away from the other.
Just more so in terms of the people being more focused on maybe IT taking a bit more of a backseat, perhaps, in terms of maybe becoming a TikToker, a YouTuber, etc. is just a little bit more desirable in terms of an occupation. Are you seeing that as well?
We're actually not. And let me draw the distinction here that it's a very difficult thing to become a money earner in a TikTok world. Sure. There's very few. And yet here at the same time in our industry, there's almost 5 million open cybersecurity positions. We can't train cyber professionals, security professionals fast enough. And those jobs start at $60,000, $80,000 a year. It's an extraordinary opportunity to get in at a ground level and make a great living. It's not something where you need a 4-year degree.
True.
You can get trained up through Cisco Networking Academy or other skilling institutions in a matter of weeks or months and be qualified to fill one of those positions.
So is it a fair assumption to say perhaps maybe people start out going down the route of a YouTuber, figured out there's not a lot of money, or maybe they make $5, which, a month that they can't live off, and then they default back to an IT?
I think I think that's a fair assumption in some cases. I mean, being a TikTok or YouTube star is a dream, and the dreams don't pay the bills. And so ultimately there are some that do very well, that can make a small fortune, that become very wealthy. But it's such a small group. For most, a traditional job in IT is sitting there waiting for them. And we see a lot of demand. In fact, right here in Australia, for instance, we've trained up over 300,000 students through our Networking Academy program over the last 20 years. Yet we currently this year have 50,000 students that we've trained up. So it gives you an idea of just the scope of demand right now. It's tremendous.
You spoke before, Guy, around having a dream, and I don't know whether when I was younger, I used to watch movies that would help influence, perhaps some of my path in life. One of which was, looking at films with like New York City and then having to go there and see it in real life. And I had this discussion that I'm a cybersecurity practitioner by trade, and when I look around and watch movies, it's like awkward dude, basement in a hoodie, that typically is out there in the movie. So maybe Hollywood has something to blame. But the question I really want to understand is how can people wake up and go, IT is like that dream, it's more desirable. If you look at Emily in Paris, like obviously she's living in Paris and she's fashionable and she's beautiful and she works in PR, it looks really cool. Can't really have that version in IT. So how do we kind of get people there?
I think it's a really interesting question because what you find out in our world is that there is fascination around every corner. You think it's that person in a hoodie that's banging away down in somebody's basement. It's not that at all. If you just think about cybersecurity right now, it is one of the most intriguing, one of the most evolving and dynamic environments in which you can work. It is a war that's going on right now in cyberspace. At Cisco, 80% of the world's traffic passes through our equipment. So we see an awful lot. We see over 600 billion cyber events happening every single day. Did you know that if cyber crime was a country, it would be the third largest economy in the world behind the United States and China? Yeah. And by the way, they're going to be threatening China here pretty soon in terms of scope and size. So it's a constant battle. It's one of the most exciting environments in which you can work. And so it may be because of Hollywood with the lone wolf, the black hat hacker with the hood on, with the hoodie over his head or her head. It's that, but it's so much more.
So one of the things that you've been speaking about is, training, development. Historically, people would leave school, go to college or university, depends on which part of the world you're in. You do like a typical 3, 4, 5 year degree. Now, as you would know, that if you're going to university nowadays and you're learning like an IT degree, your skills are sort of like atrophying by the time you'll finish that degree. What I was doing when I was an analyst in the bank, like my skills have atrophied. That was a decade ago. So I would have to go back and reskill. So what are you sort of seeing in terms of the curriculum's one thing, but then in terms of going and doing this 4-year-long degree for this, in ITs more specifically? I can't speak for the other, other areas, but it doesn't seem practical. So what's your view on how do people turn their thinking to more shorter courses that are perhaps more frequent?
Yeah, so full disclosure, for the 10 years prior to joining Cisco, I was vice chancellor at a university. I taught there, and I think that universities will serve a purpose moving forward, but it won't be to prepare you for a professional life. What I mean by that is that technology is churning so quickly. It's churning faster than we've ever seen it. You're familiar with Moore's Law, right? It's every 18 months, the doubling of processor speed and having the cost. Well, that used to be relevant to just one sector of our industry. You now can apply Moore's Law to our entire industry. Everything is churning every 18 months. And there's no such thing as an age anymore. So remember, we used to have the industrial age. So it was like 2 or 3 decades. And then we had the information age. And now we're in the digital age. But what's happening now is with, say, AI, it's more like an AI moment. It's a micro age because technology now is churning so quickly. We're in the middle of AI at the moment, having a presence in the culture, but it's going to be supplanted pretty soon with quantum. And it's not going to be 2035 or 2040 when that happens. It's going to be the late 2020s, early 2030s. So we're going to have these AI moments, and then we're going to have a quantum moment. It's because of the churn of technology. And the point there is, in relation to your question, is that getting a 4-year degree to be prepared for the workforce, it'll only be good for 18 months. If even that long. That's a good question. I mean, it depends on what you want to study. So, for instance, if you want to be an engineer and you want to be a professional engineer, that's certification. You need to have certain credentials in order to do that. You want to go into medicine. Again, it's credentialed. There are certain things that you have to do, certain courses you have to take. But if we're talking about cybersecurity, you can take 2 to 3 months of networking academy training and get a cybersecurity certificate that makes you qualified to be a cybersecurity technician in our industry. That does not require a four-year degree. In fact, related to cybersecurity, it's really an 80-10-5-5 proposition. Of those 4.5 to 5 million open jobs, 80% of them are technician jobs. They don't require a four-year degree. 10% require a four-year degree, 5% master's, 5% PhD. So the vast majority of those jobs you can be qualified for in a matter of months. That does not require a university education. University education will absolutely be critical for certain professions.
But not this one. Do you think people know that?
I think they're learning. I mean, when you look at our Networking Academy program here in Australia and you see that 1/6 of the entire population that has ever taken the course in the last 25 years are all taking it this year, it gives you an idea of the demand. And they're realizing that they can do that instead of a university degree, but they can also supplement their university degree with that additional certification.
Well, I asked that question because if you go online like LinkedIn or Seek or Indeed or whatever platform, it'll say like you need to have X amount of years of, college. I don't have a college degree at all. I've got 15 years of experience though. So you can look at, you've got college degree, you've got X amount of years in cybersecurity, but it's like these people don't exist. That skill set that you want to hire for didn't even exist 10 years ago. So it kind of sounds counterintuitive. And I know I'm potentially opening up a whole can of worms in terms of talent acquisition and hiring and recruitment. But that is the challenge that I see that students come and ask me, hey, I've gone and done a course, but then I can't get a job. People are saying that there's all these deficit of skilled workers that companies need, but then they go and do a course, whether it's through Cisco or whatever, and then they're like, I can't get a job. Where is that gap, would you say, if you had to why is that the case?
Well, it's not my experience, and I'll explain what I mean by that. The experience that we see, because I run our networking academy at Cisco. I also run all of our skilling, all of our learning and certification programs, internal and external. And I can tell you that if you come in with the skills necessary to perform a job, you will be competitive. Let me also talk a little bit about AI, because AI is going to really change the way people experience skilling and the experience you just described. So we're using right now AI to train people on AI.
Okay, walk me through it.
So fundamentals of AI, brand new introduction, you know nothing about AI. You've heard about it, but you really have no formal education in it. You've had no real exposure to it. We have built into our AI Basics course an AI tutor. That AI tutor is the ultimate expert in every bit of content in that training. And it's conversational. So say you're going through and you're doing a bit of code and the code didn't result in the bit of AI output that you were expecting it to, and you're confused and you ask your AI tutor, what did I do wrong? The AI tutor, being conversational, will take you back just like an expert would and say, okay, well, let's do some remedial education here. We're going to go back to that module again. Let's take a look and here's what you did wrong. So you have that capability of having AI train people on AI. You can install an AI tutor into any education. You can have the world's expert on a topic right next to you all the time, ready to answer questions that you might have going through. Similarly, we will have an AI instructor set. So as you are the instructor and you're putting together an AI training module that may be customized for a particular population, you will have an AI instructor expert, an AI assessment expert. So if you want to train for certain things, you want to make sure that people understand this and have a mastery of some subject matter before they come and take a job, you can use your AI instructor and your AI assessment to help you do all of that. The point is that AI it can be very, very powerful, especially for the student that needs to free themselves up from a university environment.
So as you were talking, one of the things that was coming to my mind is when I was at school doing mathematics, which I hated, mind you, I was definitely more of an English person in terms of writing, but they had to you could use a calculator for some things, but majority of it was look at your working out on how you got to the answer in terms of your critical thinking and your path. Do you think now with AI, that's going to be removed? So if we don't have the co-pilot there, will people be able to think on their own, or will people be so reliant now that we need the resurgence of Clippy? That's what I was thinking when you were talking.
I'm going to quote the semi-controversial Sam Altman. So AI may not replace your job, but someone who understands AI probably will. And that speaks to the fact that AI will augment, AI will be hopefully additive in many ways. There are cases where AI will literally replace the job because the job is rote. It is repetitive. It doesn't require a special skill. And ultimately what we have to do with those people, they've done nothing wrong, right? Their job is just being replaced by technology. It's incumbent upon us then as technology professionals to retrain them, to reskill them so that in 6-8 weeks, they have some basic AI skills that then can be applied to this new AI domain that we're building within our company. So it's not in it. The whole idea here, and I think this is actually one of our obligations as leaders within companies, is to create a condition whereby you can have many careers inside the same company. One company, many careers, which means that skilling is going to be, should be at the core of your culture. You should have a learning culture regardless the size of your organization.
So do you envision now as you move forward, we're going to have more shorter courses, like you said before, a couple of months, that people can do more frequently because, like you said, things are evolving a lot quicker than they ever did historically. Is that what we're going to see more of, and companies need to adapt that way of upskilling and retraining their people to stay relevant and move them away from trivial, mundane tasks that perhaps are banal and then move towards strategic roles, perhaps?
I'll even take it to a little bit more granular level. I don't even think it's necessarily going to be multiple months to take a course. I think that skilling is going to be module based. So there is a learning object, a learning module that you'll take that may be 30 minutes, but it's going to extend your skill set in that moment. It's going to be on demand when you need it. And it's going to perhaps be something that your company has told you, gosh, we really need you to learn this in order to go to the next step. But it's going to be instantly available there. And I do think that as quickly as technology is churning, that learning is going to have to be personalized, on demand, when and where you need it. And anything short of that, and you're going to be lagging behind the technological churn that's happening.
Joining me now in person is Anupam Trehan, Vice President, People and Communities at Cisco. And today we're discussing AI and the workforce of the future. So Anupam, thanks for joining and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so AI is obviously a big topic. A lot of people in the media talk about artificial intelligence, specifically mainstream media, who perhaps can position it in ways that is a little bit doom and gloom. So what's your view on the future workforce for AI, and what does that sort of look like from your perspective?
No, absolutely. And I think it's fascinating because if you take a step back and look at it, AI has been in existence for many decades now. So AI isn't new, but it has definitely picked up conversations and has become the topic of conversations in the recent past, especially post ChatGPT. If you ask me, what does the future look like with AI? I think there are implications across the work. There is implications across the workplace. And then there is implications across the individual. And the way that I look at it is, we will continue to see tech-enhanced work. So if I take a step back and look at the journey that we've been on with technology and the evolution over the last decades, it started off with automation, digitization, and now AI. And I think the future will continue to see technology enhancing work. And that could be from the lens of productivity, that could be from the lens of efficiency, optimization, and also potentially experience. So we will continue to see that happen. The second implication is going to be from a tech-powered workplace. We've all seen a shift in the way work happens. Work used to happen in an office previously. Work today happens anywhere. The pandemic has kind of changed it. I think the flexibility of doing work from different locations will continue to be there. And technology will continue to power that, whether that's from collaboration spaces to actually the infrastructure and connectivity to security. I think we're going to continue to see tech powering workplaces. And I think the last is on the individual as well. And what we're going to see there is tech invested individuals. And what I mean by that is, as individuals, we will have to continue to invest in our own technology development and learning and upskilling. But there's an element of technology acumen and coupling that with problem solving, with creativity and innovation to really make an impact. And the future is actually going to be like, as we look at roles and as we look at skills, you will look at skills, you look at experience. But one of the things that's going to start to show up in a big way is what I call TQ, and that's technology quotient.
Okay, so just to jump in there real quick, you made a point around, people aren't working in offices. So what I've seen is, obviously, I started working 15 years ago. It was like 5 days. You come in, you leave this time. Then through COVID, as you would be well aware, people didn't come in at all. Now there's this hybrid. But now I'm starting to see a shift of people, I'm not going to say the word force, but encouraging people to come back a lot more because they've got these nice fancy offices that it's quite expensive real estate. What do you think happens now? Is it going to be, I've even heard of people saying they will take a pay cut because they do not want to go into the office 5 days a week. Talk to me about that.
I think it's an interesting inflection point that we find ourselves in, right? So if you look at the way work happened pre-pandemic, it was literally in an office space, right? And so everybody went to an office space to do work. The pandemic kind of changed that for most industries and most organizations. And in a way, it was forced, right? Because we were in the middle of a pandemic. And then when we came out of the pandemic, I think everybody appreciated the flexibility. And I think we're a little bit in that phase where the pendulum went from absolutely working in an office to working anywhere. And I think there will be a normalization that will happen. I think the way to look at it is, what is the value that an office space? And I think that is the disconnect that we see with respect to return to office mandates and employees demanding flexibility. Because I think the whole question is around the value of the workplace. So I do think that what's going to happen is the workplace still going to be relevant in the future? Absolutely, yes. But will it be a place to just do work? Probably not. So the office space will evolve. So it could become a place for innovation. It could be a place for social connection. It could be a place for collaboration. But would I necessarily go into office just to be on calls every day? Probably not. Like, I can do that elsewhere. So I will also look at it with respect to the value that the office is going to bring me vis-a-vis when I feel that I can be at my productive best. So I feel like there is going to be a normalization that we will start to see. And flexibility is going to be huge as well. It is something that most employees are looking for, and it is a value proposition for employers.
Okay, this is interesting again. So when I started working, you had like a designated desk. Then we saw the influx of hot desking to try to reduce, well, we've got people working at different locations, etc. We don't want to have a desk for everyone because I'm not here. Do you think it's going to get to a point where we just abolish desks? Not completely, but not as many as there probably are that we see on floors today. Because there are some people that I know that they've never even met certain people after years because they're in a remote location. They have the flexibility. They don't want to travel in because they live in a regional areas, maybe. What does the future workforce floor look like in your eyes?
It again depends on what we're trying to achieve. So if you go back to the problem statement, what are we trying to achieve? And again, depending on the industry or the organization, that could start to look very, very different. So if you do have a space where, somebody actually needs a desk and, multiple screens to do their job, you will see that infrastructure being provided because it is necessary to do the job. But I think more and more, and we see this at Cisco as well, in a lot of our offices, yes, do we have desks and chairs? And in some cases, we actually just have beanbags in a room where people just come in and sit, and it becomes more of an open space where people just come in, you sit down, you work, you're comfortable, you collaborate. It's not designed like your traditional office was designed. So I do think that the design of the workplace is going to again shift into the what and what are we trying to achieve out of that. So for example, if your workplace is a workplace that showcases your products or your services for your customers, the way that you design it is going to be very, very different. If it is a place where you want to drive more collaboration, more innovation, the way that you're going to design it is going to look very, very different. If you've got certain very traditional roles or something that is very confidential or privacy related, you will design it very differently. So I think it starts to go back to the why and what is it that we're looking to gain from the office space. And I think that's going to start to drive the design, and that will also implement the experience for the employees that come in.
Okay, so let's look at face-to-face meetings. So when I started my own business 7 years ago, I started from the inception of working from anywhere, which was probably, now that people are already doing that, but this was a fair few years before that. People didn't understand the concept of doing deals and, meeting people like remotely or virtually, which is what is so ubiquitous now, as you would know. Do you think those meetings in terms of virtual meetings have more weight now almost in person? And I only say that because a lot of my clients specifically are based in the United States. So it's a bit hard for me to sort of just, travel on over there casually. But what are you sort of seeing there? Because now I feel like it virtually sort of feels like it has still the same weight as meeting someone in person. But I mean, like back in like the 1950s, like you would never do a deal without shaking someone's hand and signing on the dotted line on a piece of paper.
It's interesting, right? Because in a lot of ways, you have to look at the role that technology is now playing in the way that you just designed. The way work used to happen previously to the way that work happens now. Let's look at this. So let's take a step back. Depending on whether you're an independent worker or whether you're working with an organization, everybody's looking at efficiency. Everybody's looking at costs. So like you said, in your situation, a lot of your customers are based in the US. When traveling to the US takes time, it is expensive, maybe not the most productive as well, And so you would travel to the US unless it was anchored in a really, really strong business reason. Like you would not travel. Like there's an inconvenience element to it as well, which technology is able to glide over from a convenience perspective, because you are able to connect with amazing video quality right now. You are able to read body language as well. And it may not be necessarily one-on-one. You could also be in a room with people and you still have, because what technology didn't have a couple of years back, whether that was audio quality or video quality or even security, technology wasn't that advanced, but we've made so much of progress in a lot of the collaboration tools and platforms today. So when you look at security, when you look at quality, when you even look at meeting minutes or just summarizing, like there's just so much that your collaboration platform offers. So in a lot of ways, it is, the debate will always be which is better, face-to-face, and I think that debate will always be there. I don't think it ever goes away because the value of meeting somebody face-to-face will always be there. But you will always continue to look at what tech offers and what it can replace from a convenience, from a value, from an experience perspective. And then similar rules will apply for face-to-face as well.
So this is interesting because there's people that I know that I speak to. I mean, I speak to a lot of people, but some of my friends that are like, their employers are now encouraging them to come back in because they want to see like, oh, like everyone's in the office. Doesn't mean they're being productive. Whereas if I'm on calls, I could do more calls in a day from my house than I can traveling to the office and sitting down. Or if I would do face-to-face, how many face-to-faces can you do? I can't teleport. So unless they're all in the same vicinity, which is rare, then you can't get through as much stuff. The part that I mean, look, I'm very, modern on that front, but there still seems to be companies that don't get it. Like they want to see people physically in the office, whether they're reading, things that are not relevant to work or they're actually doing work is another question. But why do people or employers seem to feel if people are here, they must be productive?
It's a really interesting question, and it begs the question around how is productivity being measured? And what does productivity mean? And if the organization has the right tools and platforms to measure productivity. Like you said, just having somebody in an office does not necessarily mean that they are being productive.
Or doing anything at all.
Absolutely. Like, just presence in an office does not naturally mean that. So I think there's a little bit of that. I will also be a little controversial and say there's the element of trust.
So by saying we can oversee that Carissa's here doing the thing.
It's the ability to trust that your employees are doing the right thing by the organization, whether they're in an office space or not. And I think there's the element of trust that is absolutely there. I will say this because what has also ended up happening in the last couple of years for a lot of organizations with everything that's been happening in the globe is that you do have an influx of new members in organizations, right? And so when you have like almost 20 or 30 or 40% of your organization that is new, you want to kind of create a little bit of cohesion. You want to kind of create something that grounds and anchors them. And so sometimes organizations may be like, hey, I need you to come into office because I need you to get familiar with who we are, what our culture is, what we stand for. Now, that is very, very different from saying, hey, listen, I want you to come into office to do your work, right? And so I think it's a very interesting space. And I think you would have seen enough and more articles and research and voices that are out there with respect to the employers and with respect to the employees and what prospective employees are looking for in organizations and well. And this is one where it's very interesting to see there's very differing points of view, and we're not yet being able to align on what's the best way forward.
I agree with you. And I think like I get all the point around like, it depends what the outcome is. I think still there are some organizations out there that haven't gotten past it's outcome based. So,
but I will also say that depending on the industry that you are a part of, there could be certain industries where you might need work either because of statutory reasons, regulatory reasons, or maybe even proprietary information or privacy reasons where you might need somebody to come into a workplace. So I think that will continue to remain because, again, depending on which industry you are a part of or what the role is, will we see all jobs completely being done anywhere and everywhere? Probably not. There will still be some roles that might require to be done in a physical presence. But I think it's a more broader question around the value of the office space, the question around trust, and the bigger question around productivity and what that actually looks like.
I think the productivity is thing that's really that I'm honing in on here, because I remember even 8 years ago, which technically wasn't that long ago, I remember coming into the office and it was 9:03 and my manager said good afternoon, and that really infuriated me because it's like, yeah, but I'm here till 6:30 every day when I'm supposed to leave at 5. So I felt like, again, that it's getting people already offside. Again, if it's a meeting, it's very different. You should be punctual. However, when you're coming in the office and someone's saying that, and again, it did feel like, well, you're here, therefore you must be productive. And that is probably I wasn't, because I was already annoyed by getting in the door saying accused of being late or afternoon. So I think that now I'm still seeing a lot of that theory in companies saying, well, we've got people in the office, people are productive.
Yeah, and it, Carissa, just goes back to what we just spoke about, which is trust. I mean, to the example that you just mentioned, I think at that moment, what would have gone through your mind is, do you not trust that I'm doing the right thing? The fact that you're staying in late, the fact that you're doing your all, just that you were there at 9:45, it's a little bit of like, it is not trusting you as a professional. And I think it boils down to just that a lot of times.
And in terms of what would be your hypothesis around the future of work? What does that look like? Even if it's a couple of years, it can be as out there as as you think about in your role. But I'm just curious to get inside your mind on what can we sort of expect moving forward?
For me, the future of work is flexible. I'm not even using the word hybrid because I've now realized that everybody looks at hybrid and has their own definition of what hybrid means. And for some people, it's like 3 days in office and 2 days, that's hybrid. And I'm like, no. Hybrid was never meant to be that. But the future of work is going to be flexible. And there are a couple of reasons why it needs to be flexible. Number one, if you start to look at where we are, the way technology is evolving, and the very real problem that we have with talent and skill gaps, your workforce is going to become more and more global in nature. That's just going to be the reality of the workforce of the future. So you need to have a model that is a lot more flexible. That's number one. The second one is when you start to look at whichever industry you are a part of, like if you look at consumer buying and spending patterns, everybody today is looking at diverse representation. Everybody's looking at inclusivity. Like it is driving a lot of spending patterns, a lot of buying patterns. It is driving a lot of alignment with organizations as well. In order to be able to address what your consumers are looking for, you need to have a diverse workforce to be able to bring that voice into your products and your services. Now, the minute you want to build a diverse workforce, you will obviously use technology. And with diversity, you will need to offer that flexibility as well because everybody has different needs. So when you start to look at both the implications from a workforce perspective, but also technology, like technology has evolved so much. It's a little bit of a dichotomy where we would trust technology to do a lot, but we do not trust technology internally. And I think we need to place the trust back in technology. We need to place the trust back in our employees. And if flexible working is the way forward, the office is not going to be a place where you go to do work. The office will be there, but the office will evolve. It will become a place to innovate. It'll become a place to collaborate. It could be a place for experiences, but it is not going to be a place, like you said, which is, I'm just going to go there and attend 6 meetings in a day. Like, no, because I don't see the value in that. It just doesn't make sense.
And is there any sort of closing comments or final thoughts you'd like to leave our audience with today?
The role of technology now and in the future is going to continue to evolve. And I think technology is going to take a bigger space, I think both in work as well as our lives. And I think it's a really interesting one because as individuals, on one hand, we get excited about technology, but the flip side of that is we also get anxious about technology. And my only closing comment would be as individuals and as professionals, whether that's in work or whether that's in life, I think one, be curious. I think the second is lean into the world of technology, not blindly, but lean in responsibly, ethically. Lean in to see what technology can do. And I think it's a little bit of how do you keep the anxiety aside, but let curiosity overtake the anxiety, because I think that would lead to a lot of innovation that is going to really help us see what the potential with tech could be in the future.
And there you have it. This is KB on the Go. Stay tuned for more.